You know, a mummy once told me, it's kind of inconvenient to live without your brain and your guts. Good day, and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. This channel is all about science fiction, fantasy, non-fiction, and occasional bookish content relating to adaptations to TV shows and movies of some of my favorite books and stories. I post videos every Tuesdays and Friday, so definitely check that out. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you like this kind of content. You could also join me over on my Bookstagram and Discord, which will be linked below. This month we are talking about some more classic Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe, I have been reading this all year as collected works and stories. If you have not been following this channel, why not? Subscribe. If you have, you know I've been reading all about Edgar Allan Poe all year long throughout 2021 from this beautiful edition of his collected works. So today we're going to talk about a few more stories by Edgar Allan Poe that I had the opportunity to read this month. So the first story that I read this month by Edgar Allan Poe is a story titled Thou Art the Man. So this story as well, it's all about the man. This great, wonderful guy. He's a good fellow. Everything about him is awesome. Nobody would suspect him of a thing. Everything is just so wonderful because, you know what they say, thou art the man. You are such a great guy. But as usual, Edgar Allan Poe's endings are what really take the story for you. He knows how to end a story. He knows how to just turn it around at the end in a way you don't suspect. Now, I've read enough Edgar Allan Poe at this point that I kind of got a feeling on how that this guy, this character that had been built up the entire story was not what he was made out to be. And you have to expect that from Edgar Allan Poe. But it was awesome, I have to tell you. It was just like all typical Edgar Allan Poe. I love the way he twists the ending there. All I'm going to tell you, because I don't really want to spoil the story for you if you choose to read it, is this story, it has to do with a crate of wine at the end of the story. And a surprise we find in the wine. I'm not going to say what it is, but I can tell you, great ending as usual with Edgar Allan Poe. He just knows how to really build something up and then knock it down at the end. That's really what I've found with his stories this year, and I love the way that he does that. And his style of writing can be both humorous and dark at the same time, which is part of what makes Poe such an interesting, fascinating, hilarious writer to read. And I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to go through his collected works. But Thou Art the Man, great ending, typical Poe twist, and just really enjoyable story. Now, Bon Bon was an interesting one as well. It's actually more of Edgar Allan Poe's kind of, I guess you could say, philosophical ideas or stories. Basically, the story tells the tale of this guy. He's a restaurateur, he owns a restaurant, and he is basically this guy that's getting drunk at night at his home, and in his drunken stupor, he either hallucinates or actually receives a visit from the devil. And the devil himself is there at his home, and he's sitting there by his fireplace, drunk out of his mind, having a conversation with the devil, talking about life and philosophy and all kinds of crazy stuff that you would expect to have as far as a conversation with the devil goes. I mean, what else would you talk about, right? Other than philosophy and metaphysics and all kinds of weird stuff if the devil visited you while you're in a drunken stupor. I mean, I've been drunk. I don't recall ever conversing with the devil, so it'd be interesting, don't you think? I think so. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that, right? But yeah, Bon Bon is just one of those philosophical tales by Edgar Allan Poe. And of course, when he gets into these stories about weird stuff, there's always that devil or demonic character that's part of that, but never does it really come across to the reader, at least in my opinion, that this is something scary or anything to worry about. Like, the devil in this story it wasn't a scary thing, it was just an interesting dialogue and conversation between a drunken man and the devil, which it's just a great way that Poe writes that, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. In fact, I've been enjoying most of Poe's stories this year. Next month, I'm planning on doing a top 10 Poe stories of the year that I've enjoyed throughout the year video, so definitely stay tuned for that. And that's how I plan on wrapping up the year of the Poe. But yeah, definitely fun, entertaining read, as Edgar Allan Poe typically is with his stories. And the last story that I wanted to cover in this month's Poe review video was a conversation with a mummy. So, as you would expect, this is a mummy from ancient Egypt with Edgar Allan Poe. What else would it be? There has to be something dead or occult within his story, right? But anyway, the characters in our story, they are basically doing an autopsy on a mummy. But, as usual with Edgar Allan Poe, things are not always what they seem. What happens with the mummy? Well, of course the mummy's not really dead. Why would the mummy be dead? That's ridiculous. People clearly didn't understand what the whole mummification thing was. You see, according to this mummy in ancient Egypt, when you are mummified, you're mummified as is. So if you get mummified while you're alive, you don't actually die. You remain in that state forever. And as usual, Edgar Allan Poe twists his humor within this story in ways that are just absolutely hilarious with his prose and the way he works everything together, the commentary on it, and the response of the characters. That is definitely, that gallows humor is fit within this story 100%, and that's part of what makes Poe read so entertaining. So at one point in this story with the conversation with the mummy, they're basically doing this autopsy, right? They're hooking it up to a battery, they're electrifying the corpse because, they're doing these experiments to try and figure out what's going on with this thing and what, I guess they want to know why it died, more about the mummies, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's this point in the story where, of course, the mummy wakes up while this is being done to him. And in Poe's typical fashion, with that humor, I just want to read this quick section of the story because I just think it's hilarious the way it's described. Morally and physically, figuratively and literally, was the effect electric. In the first place, the corpse opened its eyes and winked very rapidly for several minutes, as does Mr. Barnes in the pantomime. In the second place, it sneezed. In the third, it sat upon end. In the fourth, it shook its fist in Dr. Palmer's face. In the fifth, turning to Messrs. Giddon and Buckingham, it addressed them in a very capital Egyptian. Thus, I must say, gentlemen, that I am as much surprised as I am horrified at your behavior. Of Dr. Palmer, nothing better was to be expected. He is a poor little fat fool who knows no better. I pity and forgive him, but you, Mr. Glidden, and you, Silk, who have traveled and resided in Egypt until one might imagine you to be the manner born, you, I say, who have been so much among us that you speak Egyptian fully well, I think, as you write your mother tongue. You, whom I've always been led to regard as the firm friend of the mummies. I really did anticipate more gentlemanly conduct from you. What am I to think of your standing quietly by and seeing me thus unhandsomely used? What am I to suppose by your permitting Tom, Dick, and Harry to strip me of my coffin and my clothes in this wretched cold climate? In what light? To come to the point, am I to regard your aiding and abetting this miserable little villain, Dr. Palmer, and pulling me by the nose? So this mummy just sits up, reanimates, and so he's like, what the heck are you doing to me, man? What the heck? Why are you just standing by? I thought you were friends to the mummies. You spend so much time in Egypt. You know our culture. You know our language. People might even mistake you for one of us, and you're just standing by and letting this happen? What the hell, man? It's just, I love the way Poe writes that in his stories. It is absolutely hilarious. Even at one point, this mummy remarks about how in a typical mummification process, they remove all the insides, your guts and your brain. And he says, well, I'm glad they didn't do that to me because it'd be rather inconvenient to live without them. Which, that statement in and of itself, just the way it's written and the way Poe puts that in there, it's just hilarious. So Edgar Allan Poe is not only dark and occult and can be terrifying with some of his tales, he is also hilarious in the way he writes it with that morbid, definitely gallows humor, and I love that about Edgar Allan Poe. And I have to say, this has been a fantastic time reading Edgar Allan Poe this year. I'm so glad that I picked this up, and I look forward to sharing my top 10 favorite reads of Edgar Allan Poe next month. So stay tuned for that. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see that. And those are my thoughts on this month's Edgar Allan Poe reads. You could also definitely check out my Discord. You can check out my Bookstagram. That's all linked below. And I hope to see you over there. We'd love to have you over. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. If you haven't done any of those, that's okay too. Thank you for watching. And, as always, we will see you next time on the next episode of Drew's Book Reviews. And until then, keep on reading. Bye.